Welcome to the Align Leader podcast. Our guest today is a return guest, Ari Asher. Ari is the COO for Global Furniture Group USA. Global Furniture Group offers a comprehensive portfolio of solutions that are designed and engineered to meet the changing needs of the workplace, education, and healthcare markets. Ari has 30 years of experience in engineering, sales, business development, marketing, and operations across various industries and company sizes, from startups to publicly traded firms. He is also a retired Army officer, and today we will be narrowly focused on how his Army experience has shaped his leadership style. Welcome back to the show, Ari.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for having me again. I guess that if you called me again, then it means that I brought some value to the podcast last time. So I'm happy to know that.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I love talking military because I think there are a lot of parallels between people that serve in the military and people that bring that military experience into corporate America or the corporate world, not just necessarily corporate America, because there are so many lessons that people learn in the Army and or in the military. And you were an officer, so you bring a different perspective, and now you're a COO. So a lot of things that you're doing today, you also experience in some form while you're in the military. Your background, you've got a BS in mechanical engineering and an MBA, and then you
Yes,
spent 6 years active duty in the Israeli Defense Forces, 1989 to 1995, and then you spent the rest of your time from 95 to 2011 as a reservist, and you retired as a major.
indeed.
So let's get started. What is the single most valuable lesson, valuable leadership principle you learned while serving in the Army that you now rely on almost daily as a COO?
The single one is definitely that you need to lead by example. And when you walk in the first day in officers' school for the IDF, you go in and the slogan that you see across the wall as you step into the main building says something. I'll translate it. Uh, I'll try to translate it in English. It says, "See what I do and do as I do," meaning I'm your example, and this is what you need to do. I think that behaviors are learned, and people look up to their leaders, to their parents, to their bosses, to their officers, and say, okay, how should I behave in certain situations? And that example that you give them is that example that they will take, and this is how they will behave and conduct themselves. And so if you would ask me, but it just means that I've been well indoctrinated by the IDF. It's leading by example.
Yeah, well, leader implies leading from the front. You can't lead from behind, right? So, yeah, absolutely. If you're willing to do everything that you ask your people to do, whether that's in a military or in a corporate world, uh, you know, people are going to respect you naturally because they're going to say, look, I know people. I know there were times when people didn't think I was the smartest leader out there, but hey, I have heard compliments where it's like, hey, you're always the first one up. You're always taking care of your people, and I tried to do the same thing, in my corporate uh, career as well, because that, I agree with you, is an extremely important lesson that we as leaders need to apply every single day.
Yeah, people need to understand that you're willing to roll up your sleeves. You're willing to get your hands dirty, and you're willing to do for them what you ask them to do for you, or
Yeah.
you're willing to do for the mission and for the goal what you ask them to do for the goal. Because
Right.
if you tell them, look, this is what needs to be done, but you know what, I'll sit back and see all of you toil and get it done. I mean, that's people are not going to work for you.
Yeah.
They're not going to make an effort for you. They'll do whatever they can in order to make sure that they sustain their position. You know, uh, they take care of their job security, but they will do the minimum necessary. And
Yeah.
I think that the example that you're giving your people is what what gives them the encouragement and the enthusiasm to follow you and someone and many times to surpass you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I called the difference between the two things you described. Leading from the front, being there, getting your hands dirty, versus sitting back and saying, "Hey, you guys get it done. I'm going to go sit in the office and drink some coffee." The second one, your employees are paycheck loyal. And you call them employees. You don't call them team members or members of your family. You're they're not that important to you, but without people, not too many businesses thrive or survive, right? That's the essence. There is the people, right?
Yes, and I think that that's not that's relevant for the workplace. It's relevant for the military as well.
Yeah.
People need to feel that you invest in them, and that you're willing to make an effort to develop them,
Yeah.
and to help them call it get a better future or be more
Right.
successful in the future. And I'm
Yeah.
always telling my employees, I said, look, I don't know if you'll work here your entire life. But what I want to make sure is that if you decide to continue here, or if you decide to leave and get a better job somewhere else, you'll know that the company and your managers did the best to develop you to a point where you can achieve those goals, your personal goals. So it's
Right.
important to let them know that yes, the mission is critical, and we're here for the mission. We're not here for you or for me. We're here for whatever the mission is, right? If it's military, it may be taking a hill, and if it's a company, it may be increasing your revenue. The mission
Right.
is critical, and what we do is for the mission. But you don't forget for a minute that you have people, and people need to get something out of it.
Right.
They need to
Absolutely.
get something out of it. They need to know that being idealistic is great, but it gets you going just to a point. At some
Right.
point, you also need to get something, and that something may be fulfillment. That something may be a bigger paycheck, whatever you want. But it needs to be a two-way street.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. That's so true in any aspect of life. You know.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about a time. You talked a little bit about mission and execution. In the military, mission and critical means life and death. How do you translate that absolute focus on execution, which is necessary in the military, into the corporate world with leading initiatives like driving efficiencies across multiple functions at your current company?
It's funny, and I will tell you something that I use almost as a joke in the office, right? Uh, we talk about something, and people get upset, or people get really excited of something, and sometimes I say, look, the Syrians are not on the fences, right? So we all understand it's extremely important, but it's not life and death. It's not. You call it, if you wanted to translate it, you would say it's not brain surgery, right? Not
Yeah.
not not from the complexity point of view, and not from the risk reward point of view.
Right.
But at the same time, as I said, people are working for a company in order to achieve goals,
Right.
and we are always serving something. We're serving our country. We're serving an ideal. We're serving our bosses. We're serving our corporation. We're serving Wall Street, right? Something is driving this. And if it's important for the business, it needs to be important for you. And I'm all about making sure that the expectations are clear, and that if you have the high level goals, you cascade them down uh, to each role and each level to know how they service that goal. Now, in a military situation, it will be similar because you have the people that are actually going to conduct the raid, but you have the people that are flying them into it, and you have the people that are maintaining the helicopters, and you have the people that are making sure that the weapons are ready to be used and not get stuck in the field. So, right, it's very similar. You're all
Yeah.
serving a higher mission or a higher goal, and then you say, okay, so how is my level serving this? And now make sure that you're focused on the two or three things that are important for the goal, that are mission critical at each
Right.
level, right?
Yep.
Because if the helicopters don't take off, it doesn't matter if the soldiers are very trained.
Yep. Yep.
So
True.
we are a sales company. If logistics doesn't deliver, it doesn't matter how well sales are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
and nobody's worried about how good your invoices look if you're not actually sending anything to your customers, right?
yeah, yeah, it's definitely not going to be sustainable for the business. So I think that if you, yes, it's not life and death, but it needs to work utilizing the same principles. You have a
Right.
goal. You have to understand now how what every level and person is doing is serving that goal. Uh, and you need to measure it. You need to have a benchmark that you want them to hit. You need to identify where you're strong and where you're weak and get better. Um, it's like in the army you run training, and in business you train less, but you definitely go through some processes multiple times, and you have to be able to identify what you're doing well and what you're not doing well,
Right.
and get better at it. So I think that at the end of the day, if what are you taking away from being a leader in a military situation? Uh, you have a mission to accomplish, and you need to build a plan, and you need to have all the right people and the right seats on the bus. We're all driving to the same direction.
Right.
I am a big believer that people need to understand why they're doing things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we have less issues of confidentiality in the business world than we have in the military. But I believe that people that understand why they're doing something are going to be better doing it.
Right.
So, these are the similarities. At the end of the day, it's all the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you know, the in the business world, you're in combat all the time because if you're not doing something, your competitor is doing something, right? It's mission critical all the time. But I also I completely agree with you that when you tell people, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, you may not agree with it, you may not like it, but they're going to go, look, if the old man is okay with it, then maybe I should be okay with it as well. And certainly they're going to work harder because they're going to go, okay, I don't really like this goal, but I understand why it's important to this company to achieve this goal, right? Versus just do it because I told you to. Yeah, that doesn't go very far.
No, no, just do it because I told you to. That doesn't work.
Yeah,
It works once or twice. I mean, you're going to get one out of two things: either people that are not performing to their potential, or
right.
people will leave. Because
Yes,
I don't think that people for longer term, they're not staying if they're just being told what to do. Most people don't, because most people want out of the workplace more than just a paycheck.
right,
Most people. I think, with the economy and everything, paycheck is always important. It may be double important these days where people are struggling. But at the end of the day, they want to feel fulfillment. They want to feel that they're doing something that makes a difference. Uh, if you look at you draft people to the military, right? Some will go do work, and some will go and train, in ways that can kill them 10 times a day for 3 years because they want to fulfill themselves, and they see the bigger picture, and they see the bigger. goal, and they may be driven by ideals, and some. The business world is not that different, other than the fact that you're not conducting wars in a military sense.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true. You know, even in this in the corporate world, you may not be on a contract, but essentially you're on a contract. I mean, in the United States, most states are at will, right? So, hey, I can be here today and I can be fired tomorrow, right? Not much different than the military, because if you screw enough, the military will say, "Hey, well, thank you very much for your service. Well, we think you need to perhaps move along and do something else. To find alternative career, um, uh, you know, programs there rather than serve in the military." But you're absolutely right. If you
But
want,
it goes the other way, Nick, as well. You want to keep the best people in the system,
yeah, absolutely,
so so they need to get something out of it.
yeah, incentivized. They
Uh,
need to be incentivized.
they
Absolutely,
need to be incentivized. They need to get personally. There need to be benefit for them personally, and I'm not only talking about money. I'm talking about
right, right,
mainly about fulfillment, because you want your generals to be the best generals possible. You don't want the generals to be just the people that had a 40-year career and got the stars. I know
yeah,
it doesn't happen like this. No, but you know what I'm saying. You
yeah,
really
absolutely.
want the best people to lead.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yes, self-actualization. I think whether that's in the military or in corporate world is extremely important because, like you said, uh, you know, money is important, benefits are important. Yes, absolutely. But a company that is struggling with providing salary and good benefits, that's easy to fix. What's not easy to fix is when your workforce is not working as hard as they can because they don't feel like they're valued. They don't feel like they're actually part of the team. They feel like, hey, I'm working for something that I don't
Right.
even understand what it is, right?
Right. Look, one of the things that I've implemented over the last few years, at least within the teams that report to me, because there's other teams that don't report to me in the company, and I'm not necessarily able to do what I want to do with my guys. But even between my departments, they didn't used to meet on a regular basis. So sometimes, not sometimes, they were working siloed on projects, and projects that have cross-functional implications. And I've seen a few years ago we started having monthly project meetings. So I have the meeting with the team leaders on a weekly basis, but we started having everybody sit around the same table and talk about projects at least once a month, and people start understanding what they're doing, how what they're doing affects the other teams, and vice versa. And all of a sudden everything becomes much more efficient. And I'll tell you something else. We change priorities because all of a sudden they understand that something may be important for them, but it's not really important for the company, while there's something that they didn't think about that can make a change for three other teams. So having this continuous discussion and cross pollination is also extremely important, and it goes back to what we said, that people need to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Right, right,
It
absolutely.
provides drive.
I apologize for that. I got a
Ah,
little bit
good.
of cold.
We're in the middle of December. You're entitled for a cold.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about leading under pressure. Like I said before, your military experience spanned 1989 to 2011. Can you share a specific example for your time in the military where you had to lead a team under extreme uncertainty and what that taught you about decision making under pressure that informed your response to an extreme condition like the the COVID-19 pandemic changes at Global Furniture Group back in 2020.
Look, I think that what the military gives you, without going into too many details about specific activities, is the understanding that you cannot control all of the variables in the environment. Um, so you can train a lot, you can model a lot, you can train for different scenarios, uh, and you should. And you should train to the extent that things become muscle memory. So you have stuff to fall back to, call it naturally, instead of having to think about it or do something which is unnatural for you. But that you only get there by a lot of training, right? Because, as you know, and you served in special forces, the first few years, what you do with a team member is basically take the person that they were, break them down, and build them differently. Teach them stuff that they wouldn't know how to do 3 years ago. So, but that's a little, I would say it's a little extreme for a workplace. Um, but you need to understand that you have to give the teams on the ground enough flexibility to make decisions that are much more difficult to make if you're 300 or 3,000 miles away, or in our case, sitting in the office versus people that are sitting in front of a customer or dealing with something on the floor. So delegation is extremely important. Um, and I think that the other thing is that what the military teaches you in times of pressure is that you need to make decisions,
Right.
and you can't be scared of making decisions. And you need to understand that not all of your decisions would be the best, but you need to make them because not making a decision is going to be much worse.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that this really helped us in during COVID. We had a cybersecurity incident, big one, probably in the middle of COVID. It's not a secret because it was announced to our customers and so on. So that was an interesting time, and I think that some of my training and was helpful. And I think what also the military makes you understand that 99% of what you're going to meet in the business world, the bad things are not closely as bad as stuff that could happen if it was really life and death. So it gives you perspective,
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
important. It's important to tell you guys, relax.
Yeah.
It's all under control. Take a deep breath. Don't do anything harsh. We'll get there. We'll get through it. And this goes back to leading by example. We're running around in circles, right?
Yep.
Your people are looking at you. If you're freaking out, guess what?
They, yeah, they're not gonna have a whole lot of confidence in you if you're
Right. And if you're
you're
saying, guys, it's all under control. Let's think about it for a second. Then okay, you take a deep breath, you talk, you discuss, you come to a conclusion, and you say, okay, this is the best we can do right now. Let's move on, right?
yep. Yep.
Because the last thing you want to do if someone is shooting at you is just sit there and see what happens. You need a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't expect this one, right? I didn't expect to get fired at this point, this hour of the day, right? But I am right now. So what do we do, right?
Right. Right.
And the guys on the ground that have eyes on whoever is shooting at them sometimes know better than the guys that are sitting back in the office or in the
Yeah.
command center. So it's all about that, um, and it's about making your people confident in their abilities first and foremost, and then your abilities as a leader.
Right. And I think there's a couple things you said there about muscle memory. And even though you may not develop that muscle memory in the corporate side, like you said, the military is going to train and train and train. I mean, in some organizations, that's all they do. And in some aspects, training is harder than combat because we've gone to the extreme on everything, and fortunately, our enemies are not as competent as we are fighting against each other. But there is that ability to say, like you said, being calm in the storm. I mean that is critical. I had a boss, that great boss, but she was not ever calm in the storm because she didn't know what to do. Um, I would always tell people that when we in the corporate world, when we ran into these unexpected problems and it seemed like the world was crashing on us, I'd be like, hey, look, nobody's shooting at us. Let's be calm about this.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we're doing, and let's go in a direction. And we may figure out that that's not the right direction, and we may have to backtrack and go in a different direction. But the critical thing is, look, stay calm. We're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out, and hopefully it will all work out. And in most cases, it worked out fine. In some cases, it's like, okay, well, that was a decision. Maybe it wasn't the best decision, but it was still, we
Yeah.
still moved. We still moved forward rather than being in panic because we weren't expecting this and we didn't know what to do. Right.
I'll tell you a short story because it always reminds me. I knew it will come up somehow because every time I talk about this, this story comes back to me. I was an officer's course and we were storming a hill. So the enemy was on the hill. We were on the bottom of the hill, and we had to storm it. And we had a plan and everything. And the guy that was leading, it was of course a training exercise. So the guy that was leading the force, right, was one of my peers, and I was running behind him with the radio on my back. Okay. Um, and I'm happy because all I need to do is run behind him with the radio on my back. And then the guy that is running the drill is tapping him on the shoulder and said, "You got hit, you're dead." And he turns to me and say, "Okay, what are you doing? You're the next in command." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't plan for that." And I started running back and forth, and shouting orders. And I didn't have any plan, nothing, zero. And of course, I failed. But this was one of my strongest experiences
Yeah.
from that training period, that I felt helpless. And I never wanted to feel that helpless again.
Right. Right.
So that, some people are born with leadership, some people learn leadership. Uh, it's better to be born with it, of course. If you can jump as high as Michael Jordan, it's better than to try and, force yourself to jump. But I maybe I wasn't born with it. Maybe I didn't have it enough as other people around me. But it was a lesson for me that if I don't learn how to control myself, if I don't learn how to plan, if I don't learn how to execute, I will never be able to lead.
Right. Right.
So it's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
I
I
always
mean,
come back to the story. I always tell the story because it's like, for me it was someone put a mirror in front of me and said, "This is
yeah.
what you are if you're not prepared."
But that's the beauty that some of your biggest failures inform you on how you act today. I mean, I have a similar story from I was a cadet at West Point. During the summer, we were doing an ambush, and I fell asleep. We all fell asleep. I heard a weapon behind me, and I thought, oh, and I mean, your mind starts imagining things. I thought I heard a radio, from one of my LPOP saying, hey, they're coming into the kill zone. I heard a weapon hit a rock behind me, right? Distinctive sound. And we opened up, and there was nobody in the kill zone. Zero. Now we didn't have night vision goggles. It was dark out, so it was difficult. But I learned so many lessons from that. That here 40 years later, I still remember that story
Yeah.
because
And you still
it
remember how it felt to hear this and wake up to that noise.
right, right, and but you know, and that's one thing I think that the perspective that we get from the military. If we're not failing, then we're probably not trying hard enough, and that's a tough lesson to learn. But we learn through our failures. Now, in the corporate world, hopefully, our failures aren't. Hey, you know what? We made a really, really, really bad decision, and we just lost millions of dollars because of a bad decision. Yeah, we don't want to make that kind of decision. But if we're not out there making decisions every day and helping our subordinates to make good decisions, then nobody's learning anything, right? There, we're earlier you used the word stagnant. Yes, we become stagnant, and how are we helping our business to become stronger and more vibrant? And as someone has an expectation for where the company is going. We are the ones that are supposed to be leading the company to those expectations, right?
Yeah, and you need to make people confident in making decisions and telling them, look, some of the decisions will be great, some of them will be not that great, but even if we don't make a great decision now, it doesn't mean life is not zeros and ones. There's
Yes.
so much in between, and this is what you're managing. You're managing the in between because you can't look. You can roll the dice all day, but you don't know what numbers are going to follow.
Right.
So you make the most educated decisions that you can based
Yep.
on as much information as you have, uh, and I would say hope for the best. But hope is not the right word here because we're not hoping. We're aiming. We're
Yeah.
aiming for
Hope,
something.
hope is not a plan. I always said that. Hope
Hope
is
is
not a
not a strategy. Yeah. We aim to something and we make the best decisions that we know how to make, and we try to get other people engaged because we do want the additional points of view. We do want other people to think with us because again, even if you're the smartest guy in the room and you're not, there are other smart guys in the room.
yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
always value of having this discussion and saying, okay, guys, let's look at this. And
Absolutely.
and, and we talked a little bit before about uh, making sure that you have people from other organizations as well, people that have done other things in their lives,
Right.
because they bring different perspective.
Yeah.
And you may think that you have a single solution for something, and that's the only solution. And they will tell you, no, you can do 10 other things, and they may be as successful as what you're proposing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with bringing in new blood helps you grow because you may have been doing this for 30 years this way and it may have been very successful, but like you said, you bring in somebody from another organization, a similar organization, they're like, well, why are you doing it this way? we you
Right.
know we completely we threw that process out 20 years ago, and now we're doing it this way, much faster to market, et cetera, all these things, and you're like, wow, I could have been doing
Yeah.
this better way for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. How many times have you asked the question, why are we doing this way? And someone would tell you, because this is how we've been doing it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're saying, well, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah, yeah, that's an idea, not a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard that. I heard that quite a few times, and I'm like, yeah, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean that that's the best way to do things.
Right.
Right now,
And
maybe
you
it is.
and you forget, or you even in some cases don't know, because if you've been doing the same thing for the last 30 years for the same company, you forget, or you even don't know that the world continued forward.
Yeah,
You just it just left you behind. You're not even aware of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
So
I've heard that in the military, and I've heard that in corporate America. Well, I've been doing it this way for 40 years. Well, congratulations. I'm
yeah,
trying to I'm introducing something that will make your job easier. And I actually had someone who said, I don't like that. It's like, hey, I've been doing this this way for the last 30 years, and I don't like change. And it's like, but what if I could make your life better? I don't want my life to be better. What?
It's good. It's good enough as it is.
It's
Yeah, but I think we're missing on a lot of opportunity. I think that look, driving change. That's probably another podcast for you about driving
yeah,
change in organizations or in systems is very difficult, and overcoming some of the objections. That's also, by the way, a sign of a good leader that is able to drive change and overcome objections and
yeah,
actually get people invested in the change process.
right,
But again, it's about trust. It's about confidence. It's about not fearing to make decisions. It's about not fearing the unknown. All of these things are very, very human things, right?
right,
All of these fears are very, very human things. So, being a great leader or a good leader sometimes is about making people fears of the unknown go away.
right, right.
And
Absolutely.
how do you do it? By saying, guys, it's okay. We can make a mistake or two. It's not going to be the end of the world. And believe me, I've done this before. That's where the experience comes in.
Right.
But you need to do it in a way that people want to play along. Because if you say, because you can say, look, I know how to do it. Don't worry about it. Just do it. It's not going to work as well.
Well, and also, I've heard this, the flavor of the week. Oh, well, management came up with a new flavor of the week. Talking about ice cream. But change for the sake of change is never a good idea.
Right.
But that goes back to something that you said way earlier in this podcast about, hey, if you're informing your team, hey, this is why we're doing this, that's gonna get away from change for the sake of change, or
Right.
oh, I don't like change, and you didn't explain, hey, maybe we're changing over here because there's a much bigger change up here, and in order to get to here, we've got to change down here first, right? But if you don't understand the context, it's very easy to say, oh, you know what? Well, here we go again.
Right.
We're going to do something. Whereas, like you said, a good leader is going to go, look, here's why we're doing it. I do want your
Right.
input. Um, but at some point, a decision gets made, and we need to go. Okay, let's move to the objective at 150%, because let's get this done.
Yeah,
And that's
I'll give you another angle on this. Sometimes, employees will come to me and with something that they think is a great idea, and I'll listen and I'll ask them one question. Can you tell me what exactly is that you're trying to achieve? Right? It's a great idea, but how is it serving the big goal, right?
right. The big picture.
Show me
Yep.
how it flows up. And it may be a great idea for a startup, but it's not for us, right? I can't do anything with it. So that's sometimes one of my first questions is show me what it's going to do for us. How is it going to serve the purpose of the company? And if you can explain that, and if you can convince me, by all means, let's try. But
Right.
that's the difference between change for the sake of change and change for the sake of actual improvement, improving something.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I can tell you, I've loved this discussion. We could definitely go on for 8 more hours. I don't know that I have the capability of doing that, but I
Yeah,
love.
because you had a cold. If you didn't have a cold, I know that you had long nights in the military. I'm not concerned.
But what a great discussion. Like I said, I could talk about I could talk about leadership forever, because it's just it warms my heart to talk about leadership, and I always love hearing about other military leaders' experiences from the military, coming into the corporate world, and how those, there's all those parallels there, are just fascinating. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Ari. For those of you watching this podcast, I hope you receive some pearls of wisdom, and I hope you will join me for my next podcast coming soon. Remember, aligned leaders are a superpower in great companies, strengthening the bond of the company's strategic goals with a better informed and better led employee base. Ari, again, thank you so much. We may have to do a third podcast because change management is also one of those things that very critical for good leaders. And I think that I think there's some good stories that you can tell about that as well.
I would love that. Again, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you on and off the screen. And yeah, I'll be happy to do it again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ari.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.